Say what you will about X-Men Forever, but it did give us a rather unique version of Rogue. Rogue in this universe still had her absorption abilities, and when the X-Men were split into two factions thanks to the betrayal of Storm in this story, Rogue was teamed up with Gambit and Nightcrawler. Now Nightcrawler got a call from an old friend who needed help in Jackson, Mississippi, and Rogue offered to go along since she was from that area. Now when they got to the address, they found Mystique, who had actually faked the call, and in anger, Rogue attacked her for always interfering with her life, and she fell unconscious after hitting into a gas tank, which caused an explosion. Now when Nightcrawler got to her, she was not breathing, and so he gave her mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. She lived, but something had happened. Instead of just getting Kurt's powers, Rogue and Nightcrawler had actually both completely switched powers and appearances. While she initially hated her new blue appearance and tail, not to mention only having teleportation powers, she did eventually get to hang out with Spider-Man and get more accustomed to her new qualities, but then the whole thing got cancelled and we will never know more. Now Rogue is ordinarily one of the most powerful mutants in the 616 world. Her ability to absorb other people's powers makes her almost unbeatable in battle. However, in 1602, Witch Hunter Angela, a 17th century version of Rogue named Anna Maria, discovers that her absorption abilities are useless against the Enchantress, who uses magic to possess witch breeds, aka mutants. Without a teacher, Rogue's powers are pretty much completely untamed, and due to how deadly her absorption powers are, she was kept locked away in a tower. Well, that, and she was being used as a pawn in a twisted game between the Enchantress and a warrior called Angela. Now whilst Angela had made it her mission to eradicate any witch breed she met, she took pity on Anna Maria as she saw her as a sympathetic and tragic character. The Enchantress, though, eventually possessed Anna, and Angela had to bring her down, only for Anna Maria to be eventually resurrected later on. On Earth 616, Rogue can absorb others' powers, which gives her near limitless potential. However, her powers are dampened by control. Even though she trained under Charles Xavier for years, Rogue's control of her absorption abilities has never been that strong. But in Exiles number 99, writer Chris Claremont imagines a version of Rogue where control was never a problem. The reality hopping team known as the Exiles come across a young mutant named Anna Raven, who, like her Earth 616 twin, has absorption powers. However, this version of Rogue only absorbs through her hands as opposed to her entire body. This version can also recall the powers of every person she's ever touched, making her pretty darn capable. She also came from a rich family but rebelled, choosing to become an outlaw and master thief. Now whilst breaking into a vault one day, she was found by her world's Iron Man, but was saved by Morph of the Exiles. Joining the team, she dove straight into their mission of fixing broken realities. X-Men: The End takes place 10 to 15 years in the future of an Earth known as Earth 41001. As you might guess from the name, the X-Men faced their end when several of their deadliest foes coordinated their attacks on them. Gambit and Rogue in this world had been running the occasional mission for the X-Men, but were still apart from them, living as a married couple and raising their two children, Olivier and Rebecca. Now Mr. Sinister manipulated Gambit into handing over the children to him, so in response, Rogue went to the Neverland camps and freed her children, but she was unfortunately wiped out by Mr. Sinister, who stabbed her in the back while he posed as Gambit, which is quite surprising given the fact that this Rogue still had the abilities of Carol Danvers. But moving over to the House of M reality, created by the Scarlet Witch that saw mutants becoming the dominant species of the Earth, Rogue's parents lost their lives when she was very young. Because of that, she spent some time in an orphanage, but when her mutant powers inevitably manifested, she earned the attention of S.H.I.E.L.D., which in this reality was run by Sebastian Shaw and allied tightly with Magneto, who ruled the Earth. Mystique was sent to recruit Rogue, and as usual, the two formed a bond. So much so that Mystique also adopted Rogue here as well. Rogue was trained well in the use of her powers until she was able to join the elite squad of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents known as the Red Guard, alongside Wolverine and her adoptive brother, Nightcrawler. In the Ultimate Universe, Rogue, who in this universe is named Marion Carlisle, was found and experimented on by Weapon X when she was still a young child. She was subsequently sent on many dangerous operations and missions. When the X-Men made a public appearance on a television show, Rogue was used by Weapon X to absorb some of Colossus's knowledge about their mansion's secrets. She reported said secrets to Weapon X, who subsequently captured the team. Now, the Brotherhood of Mutants would later rescue all the captured mutants, including Rogue, and after Weapon X was defeated, Rogue stayed with the Brotherhood, and when the President of the United States ordered the Ultimates to capture all Brotherhood-affiliated mutants, including Freeing Rogue, she surrendered peacefully and was offered amnesty in exchange for her joining the X-Men, where she had a brief relationship with Iceman. Now later on, she was kidnapped by Gambit, whose employers gave Rogue a special suit that they developed with which she could control her powers. However, when Fenris, that organization, decided that Gambit was now useless and wanted him wiped out, he and Rogue fought them off together. Rogue then quit the X-Men, rejoining the team after Gambit was taken out and she had gained his powers. During Magneto's attack on New York, Rogue permanently absorbed the powers of Juggernaut, gaining his super strength, and she would eventually find herself living on the island of Utopia. In Infinity Countdown, Captain Marvel #1, the Prime Marvel Universe Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, went to visit alternate reality Earth 9289 using the power of the Reality Stone, since the gem linked her to the wielders of the gem in other realities. Now, funnily enough, the wielder of the gem in this reality was Anna Marie. In this reality, when Rogue infamously touched Miss Marvel to absorb her powers, Carol grabbed onto her arm and didn't let go. In addition to Carol's Kree DNA glitching out Rogue's powers, the prolonged contact caused each of these two to end up absorbing the powers, memories, and personality of the other completely. Now, Rogue sought out Professor X's help, but instead of her normal story, afterwards she went to space and as a consequence of an encounter with the Brood, gained the power boost to become binary. She looks awesome as binary, even if she doesn't look very different compared to Carol Danvers as the character. When Earth's heroes were taken to a distant planet by the Beyonder to perform in the Secret Wars, it was only because of the scientific mind of Reed Richards that they could return home. However, in the reality shown in What If number 114, Reed actually passed away, leaving both heroes and villains stuck there. Now over time, both parties decided to put their differences aside and just settle down. Rogue became romantically involved with Captain America of all people, only it's important to note that it wasn't really Rogue anymore who was in charge of her body, but again, the Carol Danvers personality took over. Carol, or Rogue, being able to control Rogue's absorption powers, had a kid with Captain America who they named Sarah. Their daughter had taken on Carol's powers, but she also could pick up Thor's hammer and often donned her father's shield as well, taking the codename Crusader. As is often the case with big names in Marvel and DC Comics, some of the coolest alternate versions of characters came from the big Amalgam event, where characters from Marvel and characters from DC were merged together to create entirely new characters with aspects of both. For the character of Rogue, she was amalgamated with the largely unknown DC character Gypsy, and went by the name Anna Marie Reynolds, aka Runaway. Despite being a fusion of the two, Runaway only really showed off her Rogue powers, abilities, and memory absorption powers in tandem with her flight and super strength, meaning she basically just had the same powers as Rogue, who had absorbed Carol Danvers' powers. Now Runaway was a former member of the Judgment League Avengers of Romani descent, who also curiously spoke with a strong Texan accent. And lastly, in 1994's What If second series number 66, while she and Mystique are on their way to Rikers Island to bust out the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, the pair run into the Avengers, and having already absorbed both Captain Marvel and Captain America's abilities, Rogue drains the mighty Thor to the point of his demise, and she proceeds to wreak havoc. She takes out the Vision and frees her comrades in arms, only to accidentally take them out too. After the Blob makes an ill-advised pass at her, she accidentally knocks him clean out of the plane they're in before exploding it and wiping out everyone on board, including Mystique. In her emotionally distraught state, she is approached by Loki, who convinces her that they need to attack Asgard. She agrees. When the time comes for her to lay the final blow on Odin, the sight of Odin's genuine grief at Thor's passing helps Rogue to access the residual memories of Thor in her psyche. With Thor explaining that he was an ideal as well as a person, Rogue was able to access the full powers of Thor. She then turns on the trickster god and defeats him before taking up the mantle of the new God of Thunder. But that's all I got. Thank you guys so much for watching today on Top 10 Nerd. I'm Adam Andrews. I'll catch you all on the flippy flop, so stay safe and peace out, nerds.